Now, President Trump says he likes the idea of giving some of the savings from Doge back to Americans as kind of a dividend. Would you support that?
Listen, he's just telling a lie. He's not the one that had anything to do with the $1,200 refunds that people had during the midst of was done by a Democratic House and Democratic Senate. Right now, what they're going to do is say, hey, we want to give you a refund, but Congress won't let us because they already know that there's just no money for that. The only reason that those refunds came before was because we were living in different times. This was a time in which hopefully we won't ever go through again. We had a once in a lifetime pandemic. The bad part is that I don't know if it's once in a lifetime because we know that Ebola, unfortunately, was detected right here in New York here recently. And if we continue down this road of getting rid of scientists or deciding that we don't want to rely on experts as it relates to what they're telling us to do, or we don't want to deal with medicine in this country, then we may be facing not only our next pandemic, but our next 2, 3, or 4 pandemics because of their incompetence. So no, we are not in the business of giving out money. And honestly, I don't know what $5,000 will do for you.
Thank you, Donald Trump. There is no president that I've seen since I've been on this earth that has done something like that. Trump is a man of the people. Elon Musk is working for free to help America be in a better position. Whoever has a problem with this, something is just wrong with y'all. But we, the American people, thank you, Donald Trump. Thank you, President Donald Trump.
Yeah, say someone who pushed for reparations for so long, when I take a look at what she said at the end, like, what will $5,000 do to you is concerning. Why this same lady didn't ask Biden what would 750 do to the people of Maui and even the people of California we saw recently. 5,000 will not do anything. It is crazy. These Democrats are falling into this trap Trump is putting out. They are falling into it, but they don't even realize. I don't know. I never thought that would be a topic of discussion, but I'm going to show you the trap at the end of this video so you can see exactly where Trump is putting these people. They don't even know what is going on. This lady claimed to be intelligent. I've watched her for some time now. She is always barking like a dog in every single time. It is high time to teach some of these people a lesson.
I'm sitting here scrolling through the lives and watching liberals go crazy, and everything that they have is MAGA, MAGA, MAGA this, MAGA that. They want to know why we voted MAGA and why we like Donald Trump. See, you got to really think outside of the box when you support Donald Trump. Because like him or love him, he's moving. He's moving and shaking his whole world. I mean, individuals who you think we dislike, he's truthfully helping them.
This should be called the fishback discount. That's the guy who came up with it. It came from James Fishback, an investor who's one of the advisors to Doge. And he said, you know what we should do? When we save all this money, we should give some of it back to the American family. Let's do 20%. We hit our $2 trillion target. That'll be $5,000 each. Sounds great. Musk said, I'll take it to president. So with the president, he loves the idea. Remember during the pandemic, he wanted to sign everybody's check. It wasn't even his money. It won't be this time either. But what a great idea. Can they do it? Should they do it? Let's bring in the man who deserves the credit for the idea, James Fishback. There he is. Could you have ever imagined when you first suggested this idea that you would be here with me discussing why President Trump is saying that this is now definitely going to happen?
Well, Chris, good evening. It is a humbling and honoring day to have the president's endorsement on this idea. I'm appreciative of the credit, but I got to tell you the truth. The credit goes to President Trump. Doge, this savings would not be possible without his leadership. We put it to paper, but President Trump is going to be the one to execute it, and he deserves the credit for it.
So, James, Bill O'Reilly doesn't want the check. I want the check. I'll take his check, too. I don't know how it works. But here's the thing. As you know, right, you're an investor, and you know when you sit at the table, people want you to underpromise and overdeliver, okay? The idea, why? Because then they're happy with the surprise. Here, isn't there a concern that setting that target of $2 trillion is way too high? And that people think they're going to get $5,000, but now if you don't get the $2 trillion, they don't get the $5,000.
Well, it's interesting, Chris. I don't think it's actually too high. I think it's totally reasonable. But here's the thing. The Doge dividend check that President Trump endorsed today, that is going to help us get the $2 trillion, and here's why. We're going to incentivize everyday Americans, whether they're in East Palestine or in East Baltimore, to step up and say, there's waste, there's fraud, there's abuse in my community. Report it to Doge. Why? Because the more money the Doge saves, the bigger the Doge dividend check is. Chris, look at how successful Doge has been under Trump's leadership, with just Elon Musk and a dozen engineers eating Chick-fil-A and drinking Red Bull, sleeping in the office. Now imagine deputizing 100 million Americans to be the eyes and ears on the ground. When I was growing up, I took my grandfather, a World War II vet, to the VA for his checkups. And I got to tell you, I saw waste, I saw fraud, I saw abuse. I didn't have Doge to report it to, and I didn't have an incentive to report it. That's not the case with the Doge dividend. Every American can step up, report fraud and abuse to Doge directly via X, and we'll see the savings go up, hit $2 trillion, and we'll see the checks dispersed next summer. And absolutely, President Trump's name and signature should be on it, because this would not have been possible without his leadership.
I don't remember which celebrity, but it was actually a celebrity. And I was like, I don't know that that's not necessarily a bad idea, but I'd have to think through it a lot. One of the things that they propose is black folk not have to pay taxes for a certain amount of time, because then again, that puts money back in your pocket. But at the same time, it may not be as objectionable to some people about actually giving out dollars. But obviously then you start dealing with the different tax brackets and things like that. And that's one of the reasons that, you know, we argue the reparations make sense, because so many black folk, not only do you owe for the labor that was stolen and killed and all the other things, right? But the fact is, like, we end up being so far behind, right? And so it's like, how do you bring forth people? Exactly.
Yeah, someone wrote, for those confused about the trap, Dutch is already popular among Americans. If people start getting a Dutch dividend, it's going to get even more popular, and every politician who opposes it is going to look horrible. Apparently, not realizing this, Crockett goes on national TV and not only say she doesn't support it, but say she doesn't think 5,000 will do anything for the normal American. This same lady, when you take a look back at her videos, you can see clearly how she pushed for reparations. I saw it. Taking a look at this, someone wrote 5,000, almost 10x the money they gave the people in the areas affected in Maui, North Carolina, and California. I'm sure they appreciate the money. They appreciate that money, probably not enough, but still helpful. Separately, I assume many people will argue it will help. It also flat out awesome. Another person, when will a Democrat realize that the American people are done with waste, fraud, and abuse in the government? Instead of pushing division, they need to turn off the 3DS and EDS and start focusing on priorities that actually help the people. 5,000 might not change everything for her, but for many struggling families, it is a game changer. Wake up. That is the truth. When I look at a lady like this ranting, it is because they realize, like, a lot of people like what Trump is doing. Now let's discredit it. Like, this is nonsense. This is what they're doing. Nothing else. Right? It's crazy when I see Democrat doing this. Thank you guys who has been there sharing out my videos. God bless you abundantly. If you see clips after my videos, that is just for the algorithm. I make sure to always put it helps the channel.
In 2017,
go ahead,
then
Jordan.
President Trump.
Go ahead,
Can I just
Jordan.
follow up really
You
quick?
just had two questions, Caitlin.
Meg,
Jordan,
can
go
I
ahead.
I have an important follow-up.
Jordan,
on
go
my
ahead.
So,
Go ahead.
Mr. Hassett,
I think that just like the rest of the world, we've got a bit of whiplash.
The mainstream media cannot ever say that anything this administration is doing is positive. So even if they find unbelievable corruption,
was digging through essentially the way that money is audited within the government, links to payments, outgoing payments, budget line items. So this payment goes out. What is it for?
What I've learned from this is that if you are not guilty of anything, you will not panic.
thug who's the president of the United States, U.S., it's everywhere.
There is a lot of waste, fraud, and abuse within a system.
Audits.
A chance to see what happens when you take a business approach to the government.
Also, I got to say,
don't you agree?
I totally agree.
Essential.
Early on, immediately.
She's probably been put in there because, according to Donald Trump, she's a 10.
To her.
The EU does not treat the U.S. fairly on trade and that he has some big complaints. Is that true?
Right? And it doesn't mean that we should sit and pretend that it's suddenly okay, that this new presidency is just going to keep on keeping on. That is not the case. And
awful things have happened. And sparks move things. And it doesn't matter how much water you have.
Future president and his gag are
quality and policy.
The city of the Pacific Palisades is burning. And, I flew here last night. I was on a plane.
You getting water to areas that need...
He's been trained his whole life to do.
What do we do?
Right now you're looking straight. Remember it.
As a country about James.
Yeah, and then I think all our tax dollars probably went for Gavin's hair gel. I don't know.
Jim Jordan.
Josh Green, the governor.
Watch the news or talk.
Now look, I have a lot of...
The Democratic Party has about everything.
The next department that appears to be on the chopping block is the Department of Education. Just earlier today...
Thank you. Hey, now speaking of church, can I...
In common, they're all terrified of Ronan Farrow.
Is probably one of the most unintelligent billionaires.
Those are on Team Chiefs. Literally right next to us was Taylor Swift. Those are boo.
So Trump has been in power for just a month.